In November 2024, a powerful bomb cyclone slammed into Washington state, leaving a trail of destruction in its wake. This wasn't just a storm. It was a devastating weather event with far-reaching consequences. Fierce winds, reaching up to 74 miles per hour, tore through communities, uprooting trees and knocking down power lines. The storm's impact was catastrophic, plunging millions into darkness during the largest power outage Seattle had seen since 2006. 11 counties across the state were directly affected, with King County, home to Seattle, bearing a significant brunt of the storm's fury. The human cost was undeniable. Tragically, two 65-year-old women lost their lives due to falling trees, a stark reminder of the storm's deadly force. Beyond the immediate impact, the bomb cyclone's devastation rippled through Washington's infrastructure and economy. Highways became impassable, littered with debris and downed trees. Utilities struggled to restore power, leaving communities in the dark and disrupting daily life for days on end. The total damage was extensive, with initial estimates exceeding tens of millions of dollars. Faced with the sheer scale of the devastation, then-Governor Jay Inslee wasted no time in declaring a state of emergency for the hardest-hit counties. Recognizing the need for federal assistance to rebuild and recover, the state swiftly submitted a request for $34 million in aid from the Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA. This request focused on critical public infrastructure repairs, including highways, utilities, and electrical systems, the backbone of the state's recovery. Hope for a swift and effective recovery rested on FEMA's approval, but a shocking decision was about to send shockwaves through Washington state. In a stunning turn of events, FEMA delivered a crushing blow to Washington state's hopes for a swift recovery. On April 11, 2025, FEMA sent its decision. The state's request for $34 million in disaster relief was denied. The news, received with disbelief and outrage, sent shockwaves through Washington, raising serious questions about the federal government's commitment to aiding disaster-stricken states. Adding insult to injury, FEMA's denial letter offered no explanation, simply stating that assistance was not warranted. This lack of transparency only deepened the sense of betrayal and frustration among Washington's residents and officials. This wasn't just a bureaucratic hurdle, it was a complete dismissal of the very real suffering and devastation faced by communities across the state. The denial marked a stark departure from recent history. In the past decade, Washington state had received major disaster declarations 19 times, highlighting the state's vulnerability to natural disasters and the crucial role of federal aid in recovery. This time, however, the help they desperately needed was nowhere to be found, leaving many to question the motives behind FEMA's decision. Governor Bob Ferguson, who took office following Inslee's departure, didn't mince words in his response to FEMA's denial. Branding the decision as another troubling example of the federal government withholding funding, he vowed to fight back. Ferguson announced his intention to appeal the decision within the 30-day deadline, emphasizing that the damage estimate was likely to rise as more information was gathered. This wasn't just about the money, it was about holding the federal government accountable for its responsibility to support its citizens in times of need. FEMA's denial of Washington state's disaster relief request unfolded against a backdrop of political turmoil and uncertainty surrounding the very future of the agency. Former President Donald Trump, known for his disdain for federal agencies and his often mercurial approach to disaster relief, had cast a long shadow over FEMA throughout his presidency. Trump's history with FEMA had been marked by contradictions and controversy. While he had approved disaster declarations for states like Texas and Florida after hurricanes, he had also publicly questioned the agency's existence, proposing to dismantle it and hand over disaster relief funds directly to states. This approach, critics argued, would create a patchwork system where states with fewer resources would be left vulnerable and ill-equipped to handle major disasters. Furthermore, Trump's threats to withhold disaster aid from states whose political leanings he disagreed with raised serious concerns about the politicization of disaster relief. This approach, viewed by many as a dangerous departure from the principle of providing aid based on need, threatened to undermine the very foundation of federal disaster management. In the wake of Trump's presidency, a cloud of uncertainty hung over FEMA. A council tasked with studying the agency's future was still deliberating, leaving states like Washington to grapple with the possibility of a drastically different federal response to future disasters. The bomb cyclone and FEMA's subsequent denial had exposed the fragility of the system and the urgent need for a clear and consistent approach to disaster relief. FEMA's denial of Washington State's disaster relief request was not the end of the story. The state, under Governor Ferguson's leadership, is gearing up for a fight, determined to secure the resources needed to rebuild and recover from the devastating bomb cyclone. The appeal process, while arduous, offers a glimmer of hope that Washington's pleas for help will not go unanswered. Central to the appeal will be a comprehensive assessment of the storm's damage, going beyond the initial $34 million estimate. This will involve meticulously documenting the extent of damage to public infrastructure, including roads, bridges, and utilities, as well as the economic impact on businesses and communities. By presenting a compelling case that highlights the true cost of the disaster, Washington aims to demonstrate that FEMA's denial was not only unjust, but also out of touch with the reality on the ground. However, the fight for disaster relief extends beyond Washington state. This case has ignited a national conversation about the role of the federal government in disaster preparedness and response, particularly in the face of increasingly frequent and severe weather events fueled by climate change. The bomb cyclone served as a stark reminder that no state is immune to the devastating effects of natural disasters, and that a robust and equitable system of federal aid is essential to national resilience. The outcome of Washington's appeal will have far-reaching consequences, potentially setting a precedent for how FEMA addresses future disaster relief requests. A victory for Washington could send a powerful message that the federal government cannot turn a blind eye to the needs of states and communities reeling from natural disasters. It will underscore the importance of objective assessments, transparent decision-making, and a commitment to equitable aid distribution, ensuring that no state is left behind in its time of need. The fight for Washington's recovery is ultimately a fight for a more just and resilient future for all.